The Academy's towering structure loomed against the vastness of space, its metallic surface gleaming under the distant stars. It was situated on a space station that orbited a distant planet, a place where the galaxy's most advanced alien species came to learn. Among these students were beings from across the stars, each one a representative of their powerful race. Their physical features varied, some with shimmering scales, others with crystalline eyes, and a few whose very forms seemed to shift and flicker with energy. They were the best of the best, trained in the arts of warfare, each one more advanced than the next. Today was no different. They all sat in a large lecture hall, waiting for their instructor. The atmosphere buzzed with the energy of the sharpest minds in the galaxy. The professor, a grizzled veteran with a sharp gaze and countless scars across his alien skin, strode into the room. His presence silenced the chatter immediately. The professor wasn't just any instructor. He was known for teaching only the harshest realities of warfare, and his classes were dreaded by many. Today, however, the students weren't prepared for what he was about to reveal. Today's lesson, he began in a deep, resonating voice, will be about human battle tactics. A hush fell over the room. For a moment, you could hear nothing but the sound of breath catching in the alien students' throats. Humans, those primitive, chaotic beings from a distant world, were not something most of these species took seriously. To them, humanity was a mere curiosity, a species still trapped in the struggle for survival on a dying planet. But now, they were about to learn that humans had something that the galaxy's most powerful races could never have anticipated. The professor's voice cut through the silence again, this time with a hint of gravity. Today, you will understand why every single one of you should fear humans. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room, ensuring every student was paying attention. We will start with a hologram. With a wave of his hand, the classroom lights dimmed, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. The alien students leaned forward, their interest piqued, as a historical battle from Earth flickered to life before them. It was a moment in time that had been recorded, but never fully understood by outsiders. The students' eyes widened as they witnessed the chaos unfold. The hologram showed a small group of human soldiers, barely equipped, fighting against an enemy far superior in both number and technology. The human forces appeared disorganized, almost like a chaotic mob. But as the battle continued, something strange began to happen. The humans' apparent lack of order and discipline wasn't a weakness, it was a trap. The professor watched the students closely, noting their reactions. On the hologram, the humans' guerrilla tactics were revealed. They used the terrain to their advantage, setting traps and ambushes, forcing their enemy to play by their rules. The technologically superior aliens fell into the human trap, one by one, unable to predict their next move. The battle was over before the enemy even realized it. This, the professor said, his voice dark and serious, is what makes humanity so dangerous. They fight like no species you've ever met. The professor then turned off the hologram, leaving the room in a stunned silence. The students sat frozen, trying to comprehend what they had just seen. One student, a young Ziran named Felix, couldn't hold back his disbelief. These tactics, they're impossible. How can they win like that? They don't even have the technology we do. His voice trembled with a mix of fear and awe. He was one of the brightest students in the academy, and the idea that such primitive creatures could outsmart beings like him, beings who had mastered the art of warfare for centuries, was almost unthinkable. Another student, a Qatar with sharp features and a sleek silver form, muttered under his breath, "It doesn't make sense. Their tactics are wild, unpredictable. They have no honor, no structure." The professor's voice broke through the whispers. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. Honor, structure, and predictability are weaknesses when fighting humans. They've learned to survive against overwhelming odds by being unorthodox. They fight without rules. They fight without fear. And that's why they'll always win. The room was now filled with a growing unease. Some of the alien students began to shift in their seats, uneasy glances exchanged between them. They had always been taught that superior technology, discipline, and strategy were the key to victory. But what they had just witnessed threw all those beliefs into question. Felix sat in stunned silence, his mind racing. The professor's words echoed in his head. Humans don't fight like any species you've met, and they're the last ones you want as enemies. As the room filled with an uncomfortable quiet, the professor let the weight of his statement sink in. He was a veteran of countless battles, and he had seen humanity's tactics firsthand. He knew exactly what they were capable of. And if these students didn't take his words seriously, they might very well face humanity in battle and lose. Mark my words, the professor continued, his tone now cold and stern. If you ever find yourselves at war with humans, remember this lesson. Their greatest strength is not in their technology. It's in their will to survive. And if you underestimate them, you will pay the price. The students' faces were a mix of confusion and fear. They had come to learn, but they hadn't expected to be faced with the truth about humanity. How a species, considered weak by the galaxy's standards, could rise up and outfight any enemy. They now had to face a reality that none of them had considered before. The humans they had underestimated could very well be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The professor's final words hung in the air as the lights flickered back to life. You may think you know how to fight, but the humans, they're a different breed. The hologram faded, leaving the students in an eerie silence. Their minds were still reeling from what they had just witnessed. How could humanity, a species so primitive in comparison to the galactic races, outsmart a technologically advanced alien fleet? But there was no time to dwell on it. The professor was already preparing them for the next lesson. We've only scratched the surface, he said, his voice low and steady. The students turned their attention back to him, unsure of what was coming next, but certain it would be something just as shocking. Now we're going to take a deeper look at the core of human battle tactics. The professor walked over to a panel on the side of the room, pressing a few buttons. The large holographic screen in the center of the room came to life once again. But this time, it wasn't a history lesson. It was something different. The students' eyes widened as the simulation began to unfold before them. It was a battlefield like no other. On one side, they could see their own forces, sleek, highly advanced AI-driven robots, cloaking devices rendering them nearly invisible, and a vast array of weaponry that could wipe out entire cities with a single strike. It was a battle they were confident they would win, as they had all been trained to believe. The humans, represented by small figures on the opposite side, appeared outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered. But as the simulation began, the unexpected happened. The humans, rather than using brute force, immediately began to move in ways that didn't make sense. They scattered in all directions, blending into the terrain. They used the environment to their advantage, hiding in places the robots couldn't see. Some of them simply disappeared, using advanced technology in ways that even the most advanced alien students couldn't predict. It was chaos. The professor's voice cut through the tension in the room. The core of human battle tactics is their adaptability. When faced with impossible odds, they don't rely on strength alone. They fight with unpredictability, and they know how to adapt in the moment. Their ability to think outside the box, to improvise in ways you've never considered, that is what makes them so dangerous. The simulation continued, and the students watched in disbelief as the humans managed to disable one of the robots. They didn't attack directly. Instead, they hacked into the robot's AI, causing it to malfunction and turn against its own team. The students could hardly believe what they were seeing. The robots, which had once been invincible in their minds, were now confused and malfunctioning, thanks to the humans' ability to sabotage their systems. Humans don't just fight with technology, the professor explained, his eyes scanning the students. They fight with ingenuity, and they are willing to sacrifice their own to achieve victory. They'll trick you, deceive you, and use every tool at their disposal, no matter how unorthodox it seems. In the simulation, one human soldier took a desperate risk. He activated a cloaking device that rendered him invisible, then infiltrated the robot's command center. The alien students watched in shock as the human soldier planted a small device that sent a pulse through the entire network, shutting down the robot's communication systems. For a moment, the battlefield became even more chaotic. The robots were left disoriented, unable to coordinate their attacks. "That's the human way," the professor said, a trace of admiration in his voice. "They fight with everything they have, even when they seem outmatched. And they do it with a determination that you won't find in any other species. Their unpredictability is their greatest weapon." The students sat in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this before. Their training had always emphasized strength, precision, and the power of advanced technology. Yet in the simulation, it wasn't the superior technology that was winning. It was the humans' ability to think on their feet, to adapt, and to take risks when necessary. As the simulation progressed, the humans continued to use guerrilla tactics. They attacked from unexpected angles, sabotaged equipment, and created diversions. Each move was calculated to throw off their opponents, to make them question their own strategies. The students had expected a simple victory, but instead, they were witnessing a fight that defied all logic. One of the alien students, a highly skilled warrior named Sci-Fi, couldn't take it any longer. "This isn't how battles are fought. These humans, they're not following the rules." His voice trembled with frustration. Sci-Fi had been trained for years in the art of warfare, but he had never encountered an enemy like this. The humans were playing a game he didn't understand, and it was throwing him off balance. "Rules." The professor's voice was sharp. "War isn't a game with rules. War is survival. And the humans, they understand survival better than anyone. They will do whatever it takes to win. And that's something you must understand." The simulation was coming to a close, and the human forces had managed to cripple the advanced alien robots. The students were left staring at the screen in disbelief, unable to comprehend how their technological superiority had been so easily overcome by such primitive tactics. "Now you see," the professor said, his tone heavy with warning. "When you face humans in battle, don't expect a fair fight. Don't expect them to follow your rules or fight with honor. They will do whatever it takes to win, and they will make sacrifices you can't even imagine. They will outthink you, outblast you, and if you aren't careful, they will defeat you." The room was quiet, the weight of his words sinking in. The alien students sat in stunned silence, their minds racing. They had always believed that technology was the key to victory, but the humans had proven that sometimes the key to victory wasn't technology at all. It was the human will to survive and fight against all odds. As the hologram faded and the simulation ended, the professor gave them one last warning. Humans are not to be underestimated. The greatest mistake you could make in war is thinking that victory is guaranteed just because you have superior technology. The humans will find a way to defeat you, no matter what it takes. The alien students stood in their assigned positions, staring at the simulated colony on the large holographic screen. The tension was palpable in the room. Today was different. Today they were to face the humans, not as distant observers, but as soldiers tasked with defending a vital colony. The task felt daunting, but it was something they had prepared for. This time, they were ready. Felix, a young Zyran student known for his sharp mind and tactical brilliance, stood at the front, giving orders to his team. His long blue skin shimmered under the lights, his 4 eyes narrowing in focus as he surveyed the strategic maps displayed before him. He could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, as his team was depending on him to guide them through this challenge. The simulation began with a loud mechanical hum, and the scene shifted to a sprawling colony on a distant planet. It was surrounded by high-tech walls and protected by shield generators that had been meticulously set up. Felix had made sure everything was in place. Drones patrolled the perimeter, laser weapons were deployed at strategic points, and the colony's automated defenses were ready for anything. "I've set up the best defenses we could ask for," Felix said, his voice steady, though there was a slight edge of confidence in it. "We'll be fine. The humans won't stand a chance." His teammates nodded, some of them nervously adjusting their weapons or checking their data pads. They were prepared for a standard assault, one where they would easily overpower any human force that dared to approach. The simulation began, and the alien students quickly took their positions. They were poised and ready, waiting for the first sign of the human attackers. They expected a straightforward battle, perhaps some small infiltrators sneaking past the perimeter, but nothing serious. After all, their technology was far superior. However, what unfolded was far from what they expected. At first, there was silence. Then, the first wave of human soldiers appeared on the edge of the simulation, but something about them immediately felt wrong. They were moving in a way that the students hadn't anticipated. Instead of attacking head-on, the humans scattered in different directions, disappearing into the surrounding terrain. Felix tightened his grip on his weapon, watching the holographic readouts closely. "They're trying to confuse us," Felix muttered. "Divide and conquer. They're playing mind games." But that was just the beginning. The human forces, hidden by cloaking devices and using the natural environment to their advantage, started deploying decoys. The alien students could see the holograms of humans running toward their defenses, only to disappear moments later. The drones, which had been patrolling with precision, began malfunctioning, misguided by the decoys. Felix could see the panic spreading through his team. "Focus," Felix shouted, his voice steady but laced with tension. "Don't let them distract you." But it was already too late. The humans were using the colony's own defenses against them. They had hacked into the security system, turning the colony's automated turrets against its defenders. The shields, which had been thought to be impenetrable, flickered erratically as they were overloaded by sudden, unexpected attacks. The alien students could only watch in horror as their advanced technology turned against them, their own weapons firing on their positions. "They've taken control of the colony's defenses," one student cried out, panic creeping into his voice. "We've lost the upper hand." Felix gritted his teeth, trying to maintain control of the situation. He called for a counterattack, but the humans were already inside the colony's perimeter. Their ability to adapt, to find and exploit weaknesses, had left the alien students reeling. As the simulation continued, it became clear that humanity's unpredictability was their greatest weapon. The alien students had set up defensive positions they thought were perfect, but the humans were finding new ways to infiltrate and destabilize their defenses, all while staying just out of sight. The battlefield was chaos, and the once confident alien defenders were now on the defensive. But it wasn't just the technology that was failing. It was their minds. They had never encountered an enemy so relentless, so willing to sacrifice everything to win. They didn't understand it. And as the battle raged on, Felix's worst fears began to unfold. In the midst of the chaos, Felix's best friend, Bonner, a fellow Zyran student, found himself in close-quarters combat with a group of human soldiers. Bonner was skilled and strong, but the humans fought with an intensity and ruthlessness that the alien students had not been trained for. Bonner took down one soldier, then another, but he was outnumbered. Felix saw it in real time, his heart racing. Bonner was surrounded, struggling to hold his ground against the relentless human attackers. Felix gave the order to assist, but it was too late. A human soldier, moving faster than expected, lunged at Bonner, striking him with a brutal weapon. Bonner fell to the ground, his body twitching, lifeless. "Bonner!" Felix screamed, a deep pain ripping through his chest. His eyes, usually calm and calculating, filled with rage and sorrow. His friend, his closest ally, was gone. The simulation ended abruptly. The room fell silent as the students processed what had just occurred. The humans had won. They had breached the perimeter, dismantled the defenses, and taken down one of their own. It wasn't just a failure, it was a humiliation. Felix stood frozen, unable to speak. The emotional toll of losing Bonner was overwhelming, and the realization that their superior technology had been so easily defeated by unpredictable tactics was a bitter pill to swallow. His heart was heavy, his thoughts racing. How could this happen? How could they have been so blind? The professor's voice broke through the silence, and though it was calm, there was a sharpness to it. This is the lesson you must learn. Humans fight in ways you cannot predict. They don't play by your rules, and they will do anything to win, even if it costs them everything. Felix's eyes burned with frustration and grief, but he knew the professor was right. The humans had shown them their greatest strength, not their technology, but their unpredictability. And that was something no alien race had ever been prepared for. The atmosphere in the room had shifted dramatically since the first simulation. The once confident alien students now sat quietly, reflecting on the brutality of their failure and the haunting loss of their teammate Bonner. They were eager for answers, hungry for understanding, yet no one spoke. The silence was deafening, filled with unspoken questions. The professor, an older and battle-hardened veteran of countless wars, stood before them, his face solemn. He knew what was coming, the moment when the truth about humanity's strength would be revealed. He had seen it in countless battles, and he knew the students needed to understand it, whether they were ready or not. "Gather around," the professor ordered, his voice steady, but filled with a sense of purpose. The students, still processing the weight of the previous simulation, stood up and slowly moved toward the holographic display. They were about to see something that would change their perception of humanity forever. With a wave of his hand, the professor activated the hologram, and the lights dimmed. A dark, grainy video flickered to life on the screen. It showed a series of brutal images, human history in its rawest form. The professor's voice cut through the silence, recounting the horrors that humans had endured. "The Earth you know today," he began, his voice tinged with respect, "has seen wars, plagues, and destruction on a scale that would break the spirits of any other species." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. "Humanity has faced extinction more times than you can count. Yet, they have never given up." The hologram shifted to show images of human soldiers in war-torn landscapes. There were scenes of ravaged cities, the smoke of burning buildings curling into the sky, and humans battling against all odds. The students could see the pain, the struggle, and the resilience in their eyes. Through the horrors of endless conflict, through diseases that wiped out entire populations, through the destruction of their planet's ecosystems, humans kept fighting. They didn't have advanced weapons or superior technology, the professor continued, but they had something far more dangerous. They had a will to survive. They had the strength to endure even when all seemed lost. Felix, still shaken by the previous simulation, watched intently. He couldn't comprehend it. How could a species so frail, so seemingly primitive, fight with such unyielding determination? His mind raced as the professor switched to a new video. The screen showed human soldiers facing an enormous alien machine. The machine was a towering colossus, bristling with advanced weapons and seemingly impervious to anything the humans could throw at it. But what happened next would haunt Felix for days to come. One soldier, barely more than a boy, stepped forward. His face was grim, but there was no hesitation in his actions. With nothing more than an improvised bomb, assembled from scrap metal and crude materials, he approached the machine. He didn't have the advanced weapons the alien forces had. He didn't have the technology to match the power of the machine. But what he had was something far more dangerous, a burning desire to protect his people. The video showed the soldier crawling toward the machine, his every move slow and deliberate. The alien machine's weapons fired, but the soldier dodged, his determination unwavering. The tension in the room was palpable as the students watched him inch closer to the machine. Then, in a split second, the soldier detonated the bomb. sending a shockwave through the machine's systems. The explosion was massive, and the alien machine was destroyed in an instant. But it was clear this wasn't a victory for the humans without a cost. The soldier's sacrifice was absolute. His body was consumed in the explosion, his life extinguished for the greater good. The video ended with a solemn image of his comrades standing in the wreckage, their faces filled with grief, but also a quiet, unwavering resolve. The professor paused the video, and for a long moment, the room was silent. The alien students, still grappling with the magnitude of what they had just seen, were unable to speak. They had been prepared for a lecture on human tactics, on their strategies in battle, but what they had witnessed was something far deeper. It was a revelation, not just about how humans fought, but about why they fought. Felix, his voice hoarse, finally broke the silence. "How can a species this weak fight so fiercely?" he asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They have no advanced weapons, no superior technology, and yet they fight with everything they have." The professor's gaze softened as he looked at Felix and the others. He understood the confusion. He had seen it in the eyes of countless students before them. But he also knew that this was the moment of understanding, the moment when they would realize the truth about humanity. "Because they have nothing to lose," the professor said, his voice quiet but filled with conviction, "and everything to prove." The room was still. The students processed the professor's words, the weight of them sinking in. They had been taught to fight with technology, to rely on their superior weaponry, to overpower their enemies with sheer force. But humans fought with something different. They fought with a heart that would never surrender, no matter the odds. They fought for their survival, for their families, for their future. Felix looked down, his mind racing. He had thought of humans as weak, fragile creatures, easy targets for more powerful races like his own. But now he realized that humanity's true strength lay in their spirit, in their unyielding will to survive. "They fight for each other," Felix whispered, as the pieces began to fall into place. "No matter the cost." The professor nodded, his eyes reflecting the same respect he had for humanity's resilience. "That's right, and that is why they are the last species you ever want to underestimate. When you face humanity, you face a force that will not stop until it has achieved victory, no matter how many lives are lost along the way." The students sat in stunned silence, their minds processing everything they had just learned. The lesson had shifted from tactics and technology to something far more profound, the heart of humanity's strength. As the class ended, Felix stood up slowly, his mind awash with new thoughts. He had learned more than he had expected that day, not just about human tactics, but about the spirit that drove them. And he knew one thing for certain now: humanity was not to be underestimated, because in the face of impossible odds, they would always fight, and they would always find a way to win. The tension in the room was palpable as the students gathered once more. They had learned about human tactics, seen their strategy in action, and even witnessed the emotional strength that fueled humanity's victories. But now it was time for something more. The professor, a veteran of countless battles, stood before them with a knowing look in his eyes. "This will be the ultimate test," he said, his voice low and serious. "You've seen the theory, you've witnessed the tactics. Now you will experience it firsthand." The alien students, including Felix, exchanged nervous glances. This was no longer just a lesson. It was a challenge. They had been through simulations before, but this was different. The professor had organized the final simulation to mirror an actual human-led rebellion, a real-life historical event from Earth. The students were placed in a simulation aboard a massive alien ship, one equipped with advanced technology and weaponry. Their task was to defend the ship from a human-led insurgency, a rebellion against their superior forces. But this time, the humans' tactics were based on actual historical events, the likes of which the alien students had never imagined. As the simulation began, the alien students quickly realized how little they knew about the real threat humans posed. The human insurgents, far from being disorganized and chaotic as they had imagined, were a well-coordinated force. They infiltrated the ship with the kind of stealth and precision that shocked the alien students. At first, the aliens didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. They trusted their advanced surveillance systems and high-tech security protocols. But the humans were already inside, quietly sabotaging the ship's systems, causing malfunctions in the aliens' sophisticated tech. The students tried to respond, but the humans' unexpected maneuvers threw them off balance. They set traps, triggered alarms to create confusion, and used the ship's own technology against them. The aliens' advanced tech, which they had relied on for so long, was now being turned against them. Explosive sounds echoed through the ship as the humans launched their first attack. Felix and his team scrambled to defend the ship, but nothing could have prepared them for the chaos that unfolded. The zero-gravity environment turned the ship into a battlefield, where alien soldiers floated weightlessly, trying to aim their weapons while dodging the human insurgents. Felix found himself in the thick of the action, his heart racing as the humans launched ambush after ambush. The humans' unpredictability was terrifying. One moment, the aliens thought they had the upper hand, only for a sudden burst of gunfire or an unexpected explosion to turn the tide in favor of the humans. It was as if the humans were everywhere at once, moving faster and thinking quicker than the aliens could comprehend. But the humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting for survival. And that made them unpredictable and dangerous. The battle raged on, with Felix and his comrades doing their best to stop the insurgents. They had learned about human tactics in theory, but experiencing them firsthand was something entirely different. Every corner they turned, every new hallway they entered, they found themselves outwitted by the humans. They couldn't anticipate their moves. They couldn't outsmart them. As Felix led his group into the ship's command center, a deep sense of urgency filled the air. They were so close to stopping the humans, but then, in the chaos of the battle, tragedy struck. Felix's mentor, a seasoned warrior who had taught him everything he knew about tactics and strategy, was killed in an ambush. The blow was devastating. Felix, who had relied on his mentor's guidance for so long, now found himself alone in the middle of the battle. His mentor's death weighed heavily on him, and the emotional toll of the situation hit him hard. But he couldn't afford to stop. The battle wasn't over yet. With a newfound sense of determination, Felix rallied his team. They would not let the humans win. They couldn't afford to lose this final test. The students fought harder than ever, their efforts now fueled by a mixture of grief and fury. They had underestimated humanity, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. As Felix led his group through the ship's halls, they encountered more and more insurgents, each of them fighting with the same relentless spirit that Felix had seen in the humans' history. The zero-gravity environment made every battle feel like a cinematic experience. Explosions erupted, sending bodies floating through the air as sparks and debris filled the space. Intense face-offs took place in narrow hallways, with humans and aliens alike engaging in brutal hand-to-hand combat, their movements swift and calculated. The humans' unpredictability threw off the aliens' carefully laid plans, and every time Felix thought they had gained the upper hand, the humans would find a way to turn the tide. Despite their advanced technology, the alien students struggled to keep up. The humans' ingenuity and adaptability had caught them off guard at every turn. The aliens had thought they could rely on their superior technology to win the battle, but they were learning the hard way that there was something far more dangerous than advanced weapons: human determination. As the simulation reached its climax, the students were pushed to their limits. Felix, now leading his team with the strength of his mentor's lessons in mind, finally cornered the last group of human insurgents. The battle was intense, the stakes higher than ever. But the humans, true to their form, used one final trick to outsmart them. With one final brilliant maneuver, the humans overwhelmed the alien defenders. The ship's systems were hacked, and the final defense was breached. The aliens had lost. As the simulation ended, the holographic environment flickered and then disappeared. The students were left standing in the empty room, gasping for breath, sweat on their brows, and hearts still pounding from the adrenaline of the battle. Felix, panting and exhausted, couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and respect for the humans. He had entered this simulation believing that the aliens' superior technology would easily win the day. But now he understood that humanity's true strength didn't lie in their technology. It lay in their will to fight, their unpredictability, and their refusal to ever give up. The professor, standing silently in the background, watched as the students processed the lesson. It had been a hard-fought battle, but it had been one they would never forget. Humanity's tactics had proven to be more than a mere challenge. They were a force to be reckoned with. Felix, his heart still heavy with the loss of his mentor, looked at the professor. "I understand now," he said quietly. "Humans may not have the best technology, but they have something far more powerful." The professor nodded. "Exactly. And that's why, when facing them, you need to remember one thing. They will never stop. They will never give up. And that is why they are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The room fell silent as the students, forever changed by the final simulation, began to understand just what they were up against. They had witnessed the heart of humanity's strength, and they knew now, more than ever, that humans were not to be underestimated. The final simulation had come to an end. The alien students were left standing amidst the wreckage of their ship, their faces a mixture of disbelief and awe. They had fought hard, but they had lost. It wasn't because the humans had superior technology or greater strength. No, the humans had defeated them through something far more profound: strategy, deception, and an unyielding will to survive. The alien students, led by Felix, stood in stunned silence, trying to comprehend what had just happened. They had spent their entire lives training with the finest technology the galaxy had to offer, yet it wasn't enough to defeat a seemingly insignificant species from a distant planet. They had been outsmarted, outwitted, and outlasted by humans who didn't have the advantage of superior firepower or advanced weaponry. Felix couldn't stop thinking about it. They had thought the battle would be over in minutes, that the aliens' superior technology would crush the humans in an instant. But instead, the humans had used their environment to their advantage, setting traps, creating diversions, and exploiting weaknesses in the alien systems. It was a battle of the mind, and humanity had proven time and time again that their minds were more than a match for any foe. The professor, standing at the front of the room, watched the students carefully. He had known this lesson would be hard for them to grasp, but it was the only way to truly understand humanity's strength. He had witnessed it himself countless times, how humans, despite being outmatched and outnumbered, could still turn the tide of battle through sheer cunning and resilience. "You've seen it now," the professor said, his voice somber. "The way humans fight, how they think, how they adapt. It's not about having the best weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about their will to survive. Their hearts, their minds, and their determination are what make them the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Felix, still processing everything, finally spoke. "But they're so weak compared to us. How could they possibly?" The professor cut him off. "Weak? That's where you're wrong. Humanity may not have the strength of the Zirin or the advanced technology of the Elder, but they have something far more powerful: heart. The heart of a human is a force that no one can predict or control." Felix's mind raced. He remembered the final moments of the simulation, the death of his mentor, the overwhelming sense of helplessness that had taken over his team. The humans hadn't just beaten them in battle, they had crushed their confidence, shattered their beliefs in their own superiority. And yet, it was all part of the lesson. The professor continued, his tone unwavering. "Never underestimate them. Humans fight with everything they have, and when you think you've defeated them, they'll rise again. They'll never stop. They'll never give in. That's their strength, their ability to keep going, no matter what." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Felix had heard stories of humans, of their struggles and victories, but it wasn't until now that he truly understood. They didn't fight for glory or for power. They fought because they had something to protect, something worth living for. Whether it was family, home, or even just survival itself, humans had a fierce loyalty to the things they loved, and that made them nearly unstoppable. The students stood there, each of them reflecting on the lesson they had just learned. They had entered the academy with the belief that they were superior to humans in every way. But now, they were beginning to understand just how wrong they had been. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, their weapons, or their numbers. It was in their will to survive, to keep fighting even when all seemed lost. The simulation may have ended, but the real lesson was just beginning. Felix walked slowly to the front of the room, his eyes still fixed on the hologram of Earth that flickered before him. The planet looked so small, so fragile, yet there was a strength emanating from it that he couldn't ignore. The humans, despite all odds, had risen from nothing to become one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy, and that realization left him in awe. But there was something else, something that unsettled him even more than the defeat. He realized that the humans didn't just survive, they thrived. They didn't back down in the face of overwhelming odds. They didn't cower when faced with a superior foe. They fought, not just with their weapons, but with their hearts and minds. And that was what made them truly dangerous. The camera panned out, showing the once confident alien students now humbled. They stood in silence, a mix of respect and fear in their eyes. They had learned a valuable lesson today, a lesson that would forever change the way they viewed humanity. As the professor's voice echoed in the room, he offered them one final warning. You have seen what humans are capable of. Do not forget this lesson. Underestimate them at your own peril. The students left the academy that day, their thoughts heavy with the weight of the lesson they had just learned. They would never look at humanity the same way again. The humans, with their unpredictable tactics and unyielding will to survive, had earned their respect. And they knew that if they ever faced humanity in battle again, they would not make the same mistake. As the final scene unfolded, the camera focused on a lone human soldier standing in the midst of a ruined battlefield. His uniform was torn, his body battered, but his eyes were full of resolve. He stood tall, unwavering in the face of defeat, ready to fight again if necessary. The words appeared on screen. Never underestimate the heart of humanity. The story closed, leaving the alien students with a newfound respect for humanity and a lingering sense of fear. They had seen the truth, and it was clear. Humans may not be the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were the ones you never wanted to underestimate.